Ahava Alochov, zu Deutsch Strandliebe, heißt das Buch der israelischen Schriftstellerin Michal Govrin, das im Geparden Verlag in deutscher Übersetzung von Ruth Achlama erscheint. Der Roman spielt im Aschkelon der 1960er Jahre und erzählt von einem schicksalhaften Liebes-Dreieck. Wir haben die Küstenstadt Aschkelon, den Schauplatz des Romans, wie er heute aussieht, besucht. Michal Govrin sprach über die Entstehung des Textes und zeigte uns auch ihren Schreibort im Leer Institute in Jerusalem, wo sie wohnt.
This I find like a blessing, having that park, kind of old, with wild flowers all around the year coming. Okay, I understood. Okay, I move forward. I'm Michal Govrin, and I'm a writer and a poet, and also I direct theater and work with Jewish ritual. But I mainly, every day I write my fiction and essays. I was born in Tel Aviv, but now I live in Jerusalem, and that was a meaningful move. When I was a child, I thought was very much running away from what I felt was kind of a very simple life at home to the reading. And my mother prepared for me a whole reading list, which was Middle European, mainly, of the books that she read between the wars, and then, of course, the Russians and the Americans and the English. And I said to myself, what can I write? I mean, all those writers have such extraordinary childhoods, and here nothing happens in this apartment in Tel Aviv. And then I discovered that between my mother and my father, I have in capsula a big part of the Jewish history of the 20th century, and I'll never end writing about it. The turning point of my life was running away from the national narrative in Israel as a young student, and I went to Paris for 4 years, and there I lived in a chambre de bonne, kind of a garret above La Rue de Rivoli, and in this tiny place with a toilet on in the corridor with another old woman coming to this toilet, and without elevator and without phone on the 8th floor, somehow that was a meeting with myself and a questioning from Europe, what it is, what is history, what does it mean to write. At that time in Paris was really the Parisian school of studying with Levinas and Manitou and other scholars. To study Jewish studies was an avant-garde, while when I was in Tel Aviv, it was despised. And in Paris, I started to open, as I say, the Jewish book. And coming back to Israel, which was a choice, I didn't come back to Tel Aviv. I thought Tel Aviv is wonderful, it's a sexy town, but I looked for the erotic town, the erotic city, Eros of Jerusalem, this open question, the wound, if you want, or the holy place, the place of desire. Just published a book called The Passion of Jerusalem, A Journey to the Myth. And something in Jerusalem also echoed my research of going deep into what Hebrew is, the layers of the Hebrew, and looking for poetics, which would be also a special answer to what is writing in Hebrew, although I'm part of the world literature. ואז כמו רוח קלה עברה בגופה של אסתר. היא פסעה אל פנים הרחבה, חצתה את מעגל העומדים, חלפה בלי להסתכל על פני הבר, נעה בצעדים קטנים כבחלום, נישאת בגל שניתק במרחק והשתבר בתנועותיה. הצעירים שהשיר הלא מוכר של ג'רי עצר את תנועתם, לא חידשו את ריקודם, וכשהתייצבה אסתר על הרחבה הריקה, נותר סביבה מעגל של שתיקה. So actually I started with a memory of myself and the mystery of when does Eros start in the body of a young woman, an adolescent, and the upheaval that breaks into life, and you don't really understand what happens to you, but there are instincts which are embedded and suddenly burst out, and the actions are not controlled and so powerful. In that sense, I came to an image of myself. I even went to the diaries that I wrote as adolescent to see how in the mind of that time that huge dimension of life enters. And that's where the heroine, Esther, is suddenly pushed to cheat her parents, take the money that they gave her for the typing machine courses, and instead of that, coming from an Orthodox milieu, when you are dressed in a very modest way, she goes and she buys a dress with a spaghetti shoulders and décolleté and goes to the beach. And in a way, this is a very not politically correct book, in a sense where you see that Eros is bursting in, and at the same time, two men fall in love with her as being the other. She goes to the other place because that's what the danger, that's the excitement, that's the other dimension of what Eros is in life. So she goes to that bar, never she was there before, by the beach, and two men, a young boy who just arrived from Argentina and a married man from Morocco who lives in Paris with a non-Jewish wife and became very rich but completely displaced from his life, both see her. But she's aware of that, and she seduces them without knowing that she does that. And I was very interested to see how seduction, how attraction happens as a lightning, that moment combines biographies that are so different from each other, but that passion suddenly melts them together into a plot. So in a way that was also the discovering of what is the origin of plot, which is love. That moment of falling in love. And in that, as if in a camera I made a zoom out, who are these characters? What is the time? What is the location? And I was very much attracted to the power of love in a moment of total destruction, as the power of life, to choose life again. And a moment after the Holocaust, after all those displaced people from Europe arrived to the sands of uninhabited beach and start constructing a town there. At the same time, all the displaced Jews from Arabic countries arrived to Israel. And at the same time, the war of 48 displaces the Palestinians who lived in the same place, and they go out to Gaza or to Jordan. So that moment of total displacement, that people walk in this little town, they don't know where they are. The light is too strong. The sounds are not what they are used to. And the young generation which is there can start like the sea, virgin like the sea, life again. And the music of all those songs of the 60s that is sang with this nostalgia of there, the Hollywood of the imagination, Paris of the imagination, where quote unquote real life is, as if that would save them from the destiny of the refugees. And then the setting is the town of Aschkelon, which I did not know very well. It was a kind of a place to go, for me also, a place of desire, a place of nostalgia. And the archaeological place of Aschkelon is phenomenal. It goes back to 5,000 years ago, from the time of Abraham. There are the gates of the town from that time, and the archaeological excavation place, which is hardly excavated, which is huge. It's a whole town, one layer after the other, one layer after the other. And if you want, that's the history of civilization, of waves of migration, waves of refugees. That's the history of, for sure, of the Mediterranean shores. But as we see it today, it's also, we are in a century or in centuries of such a move. So one layer after the other, the Phoenicians, the Canaanites, the Israelites, the Greek, the Romans, the Byzantines, the Mamluks, all those layers, and then it was deserted. Deserted, and one day, after all those refugees start, next to the little town of Majdal, where the Palestinians were, started that town of placing the displaced people. How do you mend? By the storytelling. Is Eros going to dismantle everything? Or maybe this urge of life and the young woman who, from total innocence, matures through that summer into another phase of taking her fate, starting to take her fate, understanding her womanhood, understanding what are these fragile men who fall with love with her are. So the fragility of all these people and the power of love that suddenly connects plots from Poland to Buenos Aires, to Rabat, to Aschkelon, to Berlin, all those places that meet, to Paris, all these places meet at that summer in this place during 1 month. And for me it was a great pleasure writing this book. It was like a choreography of fates in the site. I visited the site, it was like a location for me, and I drew how they walk, how those destinies of people who have so much life beyond them, but they are speechless in a way, but how that these lives collide in a moment in this region and create a love story and a Bildungsroman in one summer, in a sense. אסתר נעה חשופה ללילה, למצטופפים סביב הרחבה. לא היו לה מילים להכיל את מה שנשרח כצללי ציפורים. נקבע בה מבלי שתדע למה, שוטט מתוך הקול השר, כמו מילות המשורר שדקלמה והן מלוהטות באש החורבן. וטלטל אחרון מהבהב ורועד וגוסס מתוך הרמץ. גופה ניסה אל משהו שלא היה בשליטתה, שקרח בפוערות מסתעפות עמוסות בצווחות ציפורים, אותה ואת מואיז ואת אלכס, אלחנדרו, ואת ההורים המחכים בבית סביב שולחן המטבח, כי היא האישה הלבנה עם הפנים השבורות, ורק הרוח המכה בכנפיה מושה אותה ממצולות של מוות, קורע אותה במשב מזעזע לחיות.